students, so in the first part of the chapter verbs, we learned what is transitive verb, what is intransitive verb, which is the main part or the main topic of this chapter. What do you mean by intransitive? How we find out intransitive, whether the verb is intransitive or transitive? If the verb does not have object, then it becomes intransitive, and if the verb has object, then it becomes transitive verb. It may be direct object or indirect object. You should ask in order to find out the object. I think you remember, you have watched the video, first part of this chapter. If you have seen, you know that I have mentioned how to find out the object, direct and indirect. Should ask question what? Then you get answer to direct object. Then if you want for indirect object, you should ask question whom. Okay, so now let's move on to the chapter, move forward with the chapter. Regular verbs, irregular verbs. Now let's read and understand what do you mean by these two verbs. Regular verbs, the verbs that form past tense by adding D or ED. Understood? And sometimes it takes IED also. If the sentence ends with like Y, occupy, so IED, okay, are called regular verbs. So the verb that is formed by adding D or ED or sometimes IED is known as regular verbs. For example, post, posted, ED, cry, cried, IED. See Y, it is ending with Y, so IED. So just you are adding D or ED or even IED sometimes in regular verbs. That becomes regular verbs. Now, what about irregular verbs? The verbs that form their past tense forms in other ways are called irregular verbs, in another form. For example, speak, spoke. Here we are not adding ED or D. No, we are not adding. So this kind of verbs are known as irregular verbs, which is not formed by adding D or ED or even IED sometimes. So such kind of verbs are known as irregular verbs. Write, wrote. Here we are not adding ED or D. Isn't it? Seek, sought. It's completely different. So these kind of verbs are known as irregular verbs, which is formed in another form, which is not formed by adding D or ED or IED. Okay. Moving on to auxiliary verbs, we will learn about this verb in detail. Now, auxiliary verbs are helping verbs. They cannot stand independently. It needs the help of helping verb to make a complete sensible sentence. Understood? For example, Sumesh can speak Marathi. Can is auxiliary verb, speak is main verb. So it always the auxiliary verb takes main verb in it. Then only it makes complete sense. Otherwise the meaning won't be understandable to us. If I say Sumesh can Marathi. Is anything understandable to you? Sumesh can Marathi. What? So that's why auxiliary verb cannot stand independently. It needs the help of main verb. If I add here speak, now the sentence is understandable. Sumesh can speak Marathi. Understood? Okay. Now it includes, what it includes? Now again these auxiliary verbs are divided into two. Primary verbs and modal auxiliaries. Primary means which also act as the main verb. Okay. Be, do, have. Be form. Children, be doesn't means you directly write be. Be means be form of the verb. Is, am, was, were, are, all this comes under be form of the verb. Do, does, did, have, had. It also acts as main verb. This I have explained you in the first part. Next, modal auxiliaries. Now what is this modal auxiliary? It includes other than be, do, have. Will, would, should, can, could, may, might, must, isn't it? Now, all auxiliary verbs are irregular verbs. This keep in mind. All auxiliary verbs are irregular verbs. Irregular means the past tense that is formed, the verbs that is formed in other form. Understood? That is, see, for example, Iska was completely different. We are not adding D or ED. If we add D or ED, it becomes what? Regular verb. So that's why all auxiliary verbs are irregular verbs. Iska was, are, were, do, did, have, had, can, could, isn't it? So all these are formed in different manner. So all these verbs can come under irregular verbs. The primary verbs be, do and have many grammatical uses. We can use be form of the verb, do form of the verb and have in many ways. Understood? In forming many tenses. Understood? Even negative sentences, positive sentences, perfect tense. So let's read and understand. First, making negative sentences. I brushed my teeth. Past tense. And children, if you see, there is no helping verb, there is no auxiliary verb. We have learned this in chapter 3 questions. When there is no helping verb, you should add what? If it is past tense, did. When you add did, then base form of the verb. So I did not brush my teeth. You have to form negative sentences. Next, making continuous tense. The activity is continuing. So I am brushing my teeth. So see, am, be form of the verb. Next, making the perfect tense. I have brushed my teeth. I have already done that. I have. See, have. Understood? Primary verbs have. So that only they mean to say that the primary verbs can have many uses, grammatical uses, can be used as negative sentence, can be used as continuous tense, can be used as the perfect tense. So here I finished the explanation. Now let's move on to exercise. Let's do exercise 3. Write the past tense forms of the following verbs and sort them into regular and irregular verbs. So you have to find out the past tense, past form, V2 form of the verbs given, and also you have to divide them into regular as well as irregular verb. Irregular verb means the verb that is formed in other form. Okay. So let's get started. Sit, sat. Now sat, it is formed in another way. So irregular verb. Act, acted. Regular. Understand, understood. Understood. So irregular verb. Occupy, occupied. We have just added ed. Then purchase, purchased. Buy, bought. Other form. That's why irregular verb. Order, ordered. Just adding ed. Seek, sought. Irregular verb. Irregular verb because this is another form. Understood? Next, delay, delayed. Explain, explained. Postpone, postponed. Inform, informed. Chase, chased. So see here, everywhere ed is there. So it's a regular form of verb. Next, is, was. Another totally different form. So irregular verb. Have, had. Irregular verb. Hear, heard. Ask, asked. Deliver, delivered. Catch, caught. So caught, another form. So irregular verb. Entertain, entertained. Juggle, juggled. Laminate, laminated. Broadcast, broadcast. Put, put. Understood? We have cut, cut, cut. Put, put, put. V1, V2, V3. All three forms, some verbs are there. It remains as it is. Like put, then like cut, isn't it? So that's why broadcast also, broadcasted we say, that is not the standard form of saying English. That's why it remains as broadcast only for the V2 form, that is for the past tense form. So that's why it is irregular verb. Put will remain as it is, put only. So that is also irregular verb. See, saw, irregular verb. Modal auxiliaries are used to express modal ideas like possibility, permission, etc. as shown in the examples below. So what do you mean by modal? Modal is a verb, for example, might, can, could, should, must. Understood? All these come under the category of modal auxiliary verb. Can or must, that is used with another verb expressing possibility, permission, intention. So let's read the example and understand the same. Okay. So Satish can read Arabic. Ability. Can. Auxiliary verb. Read. Verb. Main verb. What it is here written? It is used with another verb for expressing possibility, permission or any other kind of intentions. So here see. Satish can read Arabic. Can is auxiliary verb. Read is the main verb. So it is used with the main verb. And what it expresses? It expresses the ability of Satish that he can read Arabic. You can have the cake now. Permission. Can, auxiliary. Have, main verb. You can have. Next. You could feed the dog in the evening. Suggestion. You're giving suggestion. Understood? So could, auxiliary. Feed, main verb. Next. Could you pass me the sugar, please? Request. You are requesting. Understood? Could. Then pass, main verb. Could you pass me the sugar, please? So it expresses the request. You are requesting. Sudha may come tomorrow. Possibility. May or may not, possibility. So may, auxiliary verb, come, main verb. Rana might not bring the scooter back. Possibility, might, shayad, understood, might. Not, bring, might, auxiliary verb, modal auxiliary verb, bring, what it is bring? Main verb. May I use the bathroom? Again you are asking for the permission. क्या मैं तुम्हारा bathroom use कर सकता हूँ? So may, auxiliary, modal auxiliary verb, use main verb. Anna will buy me a new hat to indicate future. Will, future. Understood? So will again is auxiliary, modal auxiliary verb, by main verb. Next. Albert would often watch the night sky when he was a child. To indicate past habit. Now it's not his habit. Understood? He used to do that when he was a child. So Albert would, Vilka would. Understood? Often watch the night sky when he was a child. So expressing the past tense, past habit. You might bring my notebook tomorrow. Must, bring. Must, modal auxiliary verb. Bring, main verb. Obligation. Understood? You must bring my notebook tomorrow. Next. You should tidy your room before the guests arrive. Suggestion. You are suggesting that before the guests arrive, you should tidy your room. You should clean up your room because the guest is going to arrive. So suggestion. You are suggesting. Next. Moving on to the exercise 4. Okay. Now. Rewrite the following sentences correctly using the auxiliary verbs given in brackets. The meanings of the sentence may change when you write them. So, you have to rewrite the sentence using the auxiliary verbs given in the bracket. Okay. Rinku is going to meet the president tomorrow. What we have to add? We have to rewrite the sentence using will. So, Rinku will meet the president tomorrow. Going to, is going to also means the future. Understood? So, here also it remains the same. Rinku will meet the president tomorrow. Future tense. Is going to also represent the future. Next. Sohail writes in Japanese. Can. You have to rewrite the sentence using can. Sohail can write in Japanese. Understood? Whenever you use auxiliary verb, base form of the verb you will use. See here writes is there. Here only write. So whenever you rewrite the sentence using the auxiliary model auxiliary verb, you will write the base form of the verb. Be careful here. Next, Roma washes the car at night. Could. Roma could wash the car at night. And be very careful to write as much as possible. You should write this auxiliary verb very near to the main verb. Okay. Next, Sandeep wins the match. Sandeep wins the match. May. Sandeep may win the match. Okay. May win. Don't write wins. May win. With the model auxiliary verb, you will use the base form of the verb. Next, you clean the bench before you leave. Should. You should clean the bench before you leave. Next, Anil fetches the ball from the garden. Must. What you have to add? You have to add must. So, answer. Anil must fetch. See, fetches become fetch. The ball from the garden. That's all for today, children. I have completed this chapter. Hope you understood the chapter. Go through it thoroughly. Also go through the videos whichever I am sending you regularly so that it will be very understandable to you. Okay? Write these exercises in your notebook. Take care. Bye.